Hey there, my name is Brenda Keller, and in this short video course, I want to show you the 7 areas of Microsoft Excel that I think you need to learn in order to start using the program. When you first open Excel, the application can seem very overwhelming, but after you go through this course, you'll have a much better understanding of how Excel works. I've been using Excel for decades, but I believe anyone can learn how to use it if they just spend a little bit of time learning the basics, which is what we're going to do in this course. In the course, we'll take a look at how to navigate around the program. Then we'll look at how to write formulas to perform calculations, and I'll explain how cell references work. We'll take a look at a couple of Excel's built-in functions. I'll show you how to convert a data range into a table and explain why you would want to do that. Then we'll look at creating charts to visualize your data and pivot tables to summarize it. Now, along with the course, I've included a couple of files for you to use: 7thingsbeginning and 7thingsending.xlsx. You can use the beginning file as a starting point for all the examples in the course if you want to follow along, and the ending file is the completed version of all the examples. You can choose either download the files to use in your Excel application if you have it, or you can use it with the Excel Online application, which you can use for free if you have a Microsoft account. Now, we're going to go through a lot in this video, and if you want a more in-depth look into all the topics and other features of Excel, you can check out my Microsoft Excel Quick Start course on the Udemy course marketplace. Just click on the link or the button below this video to check out the course. The Quick Start course includes over 7 hours of short video lectures, along with quizzes and practice exercises and other resources for you to use. And there's a Q&A section in case you have any questions while you're taking the course. So that's enough talking. Let's start learning about Excel. When you start using Excel, it's helpful to learn the parts of the application. There are 6 main areas in Excel. These are the title bar, the command ribbon, the name box and formula bar, the workbook, the status bar, and the backstage view. Let's look at each of these areas a little closer. The top area of the Excel application is the title bar. It consists of the autosave button, which will automatically save changes to documents stored on the Microsoft OneDrive file hosting service. The Quick Access toolbar, which is a customizable toolbar where you keep shortcuts to your frequently used Excel command icons. Your document's name, which is why the title bar is called the title bar. The search bar, which you can use to find or get help with a command. A login button, or your account name if you're logged into your Microsoft account. The ribbon display options icon, which you can use to set how the command ribbon looks. And window sizing and closing icons, which you can use to minimize, maximize, restore, and close your document and the Excel application. Below the title bar is the command ribbon. The command ribbon contains all the icons you use to do things in Excel. The first thing you'll see in the command ribbon is the File button. This button takes you to what is called the backstage view of Excel, which we'll look at in a little bit. The text items to the right of the File button are the command ribbon tabs. You use these tabs to switch to different sections of the command ribbon. Each section of the command ribbon has a different set of commands. The tabs you see can change based on what you're doing in Excel and if you've customized the application. Below the command ribbon tabs are the Excel command icons for the selected tab. Each icon executes a command in Excel, like copying or formatting, for example. Below the command ribbon, you'll see the name box and formula bar. The name box displays the name of the selected cell or cells. Next to the name box, you'll see 3 icons. These are the formula bar icons, and they're used to save or cancel a formula or to get help with or insert a function. To the right of the formula bar icons is the formula bar. You'll use this to write expressions that perform calculations called formulas. There's also an arrow at the right end of the formula bar that you can use to expand or collapse the formula bar. The next area of the Excel application is the workbook. The workbook is also known as an Excel file. A workbook has these components: the worksheet, which is 1 page of an Excel file. You can have 1 or more worksheets in a workbook. Columns go across the worksheet. They have headers above them and are identified by letters. Rows go down the worksheet. They have headers to the left and are identified by numbers. Each rectangle within a worksheet is called a cell, and is the intersection of a column and a row. Each cell holds one piece of information and is identified by its column letter and row number. Each worksheet in a workbook has a worksheet name on its tab down here. You can change the name, and if there are multiple worksheets like we see in this workbook, you can click a tab to switch to that worksheet. To the right of the worksheets tabs is the Add Worksheet icon. You can use this icon to add worksheets to your workbook. There are also horizontal and vertical scroll bars that let you access rows and columns of the worksheet that are off the screen. Below the Excel workbook is the status bar. The status bar provides information about what's happening in your workbook. To change what you see on the status bar, just right-click it and select items from the shortcut menu. Some of the things you may see on the status bar include the cell mode indicator, which specifies the editing status of the selected cell. There are 4 modes: Ready, Edit, Enter, and Point. Next, you may see key indicators for the numlock, caps lock, and scroll lock keys. You'll see text here when any of these keys are activated. If you have more than one cell in your workbook selected, you'll see calculation results over here. Some possible results include sum, count, min, and max. Next, there are 3 icons on the status bar that you can use to change the view of your worksheet. You can choose between Normal, Page Layout, and Page Break Preview. The final items on the status bar allow you to change the zoom level of the text in your worksheet. Now, the last part of the Excel application I'd like to look at is the Backstage view. We talked about it briefly when we were looking at the command ribbon. You can get to the Backstage view by clicking the File button to the left of the command ribbon tabs. From the Backstage view, you can access templates, which you can use as a starting point for new Excel documents. You can create a new Excel document, open an existing Excel document, get information about the currently open document, save your document, print it, share it, export it, publish it to Power BI, close it. You can also view information about your Microsoft account, send feedback to Microsoft, and change Excel application features. When you're done, you can exit the Backstage view and return to your workbook by clicking the Back button or by pressing the Escape key on your keyboard. Okay, now that you know your way around the Excel application, let's look at the most widely used feature of the program: writing formulas. You write formulas in Excel to perform calculations. To write a formula, just select the cell where you want to display the result. I'll choose cell A4. Then, to let Excel know you're entering a formula and not just typing some text, type an equal sign. As you type, you can see the text in the cell and the formula bar. Next, type the expression you want to calculate. As an example, I'll write a formula to add 1 plus 2, so I'll enter a 1, a plus sign, and a 2. To complete the formula and see the result, press Enter. Pressing Enter will save the formula and move you to the next cell down in your worksheet. I'd like to see the formula in the formula bar, so I'll select cell A4 again. Now you can see the formula I typed in the formula bar, and you can see the result of the formula, the number 3, in cell A4. You can also see the formula in cell B4. Throughout this video, I'm going to be demonstrating many formulas, and I'd like you to be able to see them even when I don't have the cell selected. So in this worksheet, I've written a formula in column B to display the formula I've typed in column A. When you write formulas, you can use arithmetic and logic symbols to perform calculations and logical comparisons. You can do subtraction by using a dash or a minus sign. If I select cell A5, I can type equals 1 minus 2, press Enter, and we'll see the result. You can also perform multiplication by using an asterisk. So if I type equals 1 times 2 and press Enter, we'll see the result of 1 times 2. You can do division with a forward slash. You could also write a formula to perform a logical comparison. For instance, if I wanted to check if 100 was greater than 50, I'd type equals 100 greater than symbol 50 and press Enter. If the logical comparison is true, which it was in this case, the word true is shown as a result. Otherwise, false would be the result. As we've seen in these examples, to include numbers in a formula, you just type the number. If you want to include text in a formula, you need to enclose the text in double quotes. So if I wanted to write a formula to show the text 1 plus 2 equals 3, I would type the formula equal double quote 1 plus sign 2 equal sign 3 double quote and press enter. So now you know how to write formulas using specific numbers and text, but the real power of Excel is using the value in a cell of your worksheet within a formula. So let's take a look at how to do this using cell references. A cell reference identifies a cell. Each cell's reference is a combination of its column letter and row number. The cell I've selected is cell A4. Notice that the headers for column A and row 4 are both highlighted. Also notice that the name A4 appears in the name box. A4 is the currently selected cell's reference. You can use cell references in formulas. When you do this, Excel gets the value contained within the cell and uses it in the formula. For example, in cell B9, you could add together the values in cells B5, B6, B7, and B8 to get the total sales for all 4 weeks for product 1. To do this, you would select cell B9, then type an equal sign, then B5, a plus sign, B6, another plus sign, B7, one more plus sign, and B8. After I enter this formula, I want to stay in cell B9, so instead of pressing enter, I'll hold my control key and press enter. You can see the formula with all the cell references in the formula bar. Excel performs the calculation by replacing each cell reference in the formula with the value contained in that cell. It adds all the values together, and it shows the result in cell B9. As another example, in cell E5, you could add together the value in cells B5, C5, and D5 to get the total sales for all 3 products for week 1. So I'll select cell E5 and I'll type equals B5 plus C5 plus D5, and I'll press Ctrl plus Enter to see the result. In addition to typing formulas in cells, you can reuse formulas by copying and pasting them to another cell. If you copy the formula in cell E5 and paste it in cell E6, when you look at the formula bar, you'll see that the formula in cell E6 references the sales figures for all 3 products for week 2. The cell references have changed from B5, C5, and D5 to B6, C6, and D6. This happened because the cell references in the formula are what we call relative cell references. Relative cell references will change based on how far from the original cell the formula is pasted. The row number of each cell reference in the formula in cell E6 increased by 1 because we pasted the formula 1 row down, not because we pasted the formula to row 6. To further illustrate how relative cell references change when copied to another cell, if you select C12 and enter the formula equals B6, the value from cell B6 is now visible in cell C12. Then if you copy the formula in cell C12 to cell E11, the formula in E11 will be equals D5, and you'll see the value from cell D5 in cell E11. Since the formula was pasted 2 columns to the right of the original cell, the column letter in the formula increased by 2, changing from B to D. And since the formula was pasted 1 row up from the original cell, the row number in the formula decreased by 1, changing from 6 to 5. I'll update the remaining total cells in our data so they'll all be filled in. When I copied and pasted the formulas, the relative cell references changed to include the correct cells in each total cell. To show you one more example of what happens when you copy a formula with a relative cell reference to other cells, in cell I7, I've typed the formula equals C6. You can see the formula from cell I7 displayed in cell L7, and the value from cell C6 is displayed in cell I7. Next, I'll copy the formula in cell I7 and paste it into the surrounding cells. And you can see all the formulas used in cells H6 through J8 displayed in cells K6 through M8. The cell references all changed based on how far away the new cell was from the original cell. So that's how relative cell references work. Now there may be times when you want to copy a formula from one cell to another cell, but you don't want the cell reference to change. To do this, you can make all or part of the cell reference what is called absolute by placing a $ before the part of the cell reference that you don't want to change. You can make a cell reference's column, row, or column and row absolute. I've included 3 additional areas of cells in this worksheet where I've entered a formula in the center cell and copied the formula to the surrounding cells. Check out these examples to see how absolute cell references work. You'll notice that the part of the cell references that have $ do not change when pasted to other cells. There's a few other things you need to know about cell references. You can move a cell reference and it won't change, even if it's relative. You can type a cell reference in upper or lowercase, it doesn't matter. Excel will actually change it to uppercase when it saves your changes, but you can type it either way. You can specify a range of cells by typing the top left cell of the range, then a colon, and then the bottom right cell of the range. We'll see some examples of using cell ranges when we look at functions in the next part of this video. You can specify an entire column of cells by typing the column letter followed by a colon and the column letter again, and you can specify an entire row by typing the row number followed by a colon and the row number again. So those are the basics of cell references. Let's look at another tool you can use within your formulas called built-in functions. Excel has built-in functions that perform specific tasks, like adding values together, averaging a list of values, counting values, and more. You use functions within formulas. A function consists of a few different parts: the function's name, an opening parenthesis, one or more values that you pass to the function separated by commas, and a closing parenthesis. The values you pass to a function are called arguments. Some arguments are required, but others are optional. An argument can be text, a number, a cell reference, or the result of another function. The functions may sound a little confusing at this point, so let's look at some examples of using them. The most commonly used Excel function is the sum function. The sum function adds numbers together. Using the sum function is similar to what we did when we typed numbers or cell references with plus signs between them in previous examples, but the sum function allows you to enter cell ranges, which I mentioned briefly earlier in the video. So let's try the sum function. You can use the sum function to total the sales values for product 1, for instance, by adding the individual cell references separated by commas like this. So I'll select cell B9, I'll type equal sum, opening parentheses, B5, comma, B6, comma, B7, comma, B8, closing parentheses, and press Ctrl plus Enter. Now you see the total sales for product 1 in cell B9. You can then copy the formula in cell B9 to cells C9 and D9 to get the total sales for products 2 and 3. An even easier way to get the sum of multiple cell references that are adjacent is to use a cell range. You can use the sum function to get the total sales for all products for week 1 by typing this formula. I'll select cell E5 and type equal sum, opening parentheses, B5 colon D5, closing parenthesis, and press Ctrl plus Enter. In the cell range, I specified the first cell of the range, which was B5, then I typed a colon, and then I entered the last cell of the range, which was D5. You would read the formula as the sum of cells B5 through D5. You can copy the formula in cell E5 and paste it to cells E6 through E9 to get the total sales for weeks 2 and 3 and to get the overall total. For our next formula, let's try another function, the average function. This function, as you may have assumed, returns the average of the numbers passed to it. You can use the average function to get the average sales for product 1 by adding the individual cell references separated by commas. So I'll select B10, then I'll type equals average, parenthesis, B5, comma, B6, comma, B7, comma, B8, closing parenthesis, and press Ctrl plus Enter. You can then copy the formula in cell B10 to cells C10 and D10 to get the average sales for products 2 and 3. You can use the average function to get the average sales for all products for week 1 by typing this formula. I'll select cell F5 and then type equals average, opening parenthesis, B5 colon D5, closing parenthesis, and then press Ctrl plus Enter. Then you can copy the formula in cell F5 and paste it to cells F6 through F8 and F10 to get the average sales for weeks 2 and 3 and to get the overall average. Now let's try out some other functions down here. I'll type a formula in column A and you'll see the result of the formula in column A, and you'll see the formula I typed in column C. The concat function combines text that is passed to the function to make one string of text. So we could combine the title text with the subtitle text in one cell by using this formula, equal concat opening parenthesis A1, which contains the title, comma, double quote space dash space double quote, which will add the text space dash space, another comma, then A2, which references the subtitle, then the closing parenthesis, and press enter. The formula combined the title in cell A1, the text space dash space, and the subtitle text in cell A2. The COUNTA function returns the number of cells within a range passed to it that contain any value. You could find out how many cells in the sales data above contain any value with this formula, equal COUNTA parenthesis A4 colon F10 parenthesis. The number returned was 42 because all the cells in the range passed to the function contain something. The count function is a little different. It returns the number of cells within a range passed to it that contain numbers. So you can find out how many cells in the sales data above contain numbers with this formula. Equal count, opening parenthesis, A4, colon, F10, closing parenthesis. There are 42 cells in the entire range, as we saw in the previous COUNTA example, but only 28 contain numbers, so 28 is returned from this formula. The max function returns the highest value from the values passed to it. So you could return the highest sales amount in the sales data with this formula by typing equal max parenthesis B5 colon D8 closing parenthesis. The formula returned the sales figure from product 1 week 3 since it's the highest value. The min function returns the lowest value from the values passed to it. So you could return the lowest week total with this formula, equal min opening parenthesis E5 colon E8 closing parenthesis. The formula returned the value from week 1 since it's the smallest value. So those are the basics of using functions. There are hundreds of functions you could use in Excel, and there's hundreds of ways you could use them. You can even use more than one function in a single formula. Next, we'll look at converting a list of data into a table and see some of the advantages of doing this. Tables provide structure to a list of related data in your worksheet. To show you how to convert a list of data into a table, I've taken the product sales data we've been using and have removed the formatting and the totals. The first row in the data contains names that describe the pieces of information in the rows below it. This row will become the table's headers. Each column in the data contains the same type of information in each row. Column A contains the specific week name for each row. Column B contains the product 1 sales figures, and so on. Each of the rows below the header row contains the details of 1 week's worth of data. For example, row 5 contains the details of week 1. So let's convert this list of data into a table. To do this, you can select any cell within the range of cells to convert. I'll select cell B6. Then use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl+T to open the Create Table dialog box. In the dialog box, you need to specify the range of cells to convert to a table and whether or not your data contains headers. For our example, the dialog box already has everything it needs, so you just click OK to convert the data into a table. Notice that when a cell in the table is selected, we're on a different tab of the command ribbon, the Table Design tab. This command ribbon tab is only visible when a cell within a table is selected. One of the advantages of tables is that you can format them with colors and borders that will automatically update as the table changes. As you can see, Excel automatically applied formatting to this table. Up here, you can see which format was applied to the table. You can click on the More button over here to see the different styles you can apply to your table. You can hover over a style to see a preview of it applied to your table, and then click the style you want to use it with your table. Another advantage of using tables is that if you enter a formula in a cell, all the other cells in that column will update with the same formula. So you can add a formula to get the total sales for week 1 in cell E5 like this. I'll select cell E5 and type equal sum parenthesis B5 colon D5 closing parenthesis. And then when I press enter to save the formula, cells E6 through E8 will automatically update with the correct formulas to calculate totals for the remaining weeks. There are additional options you can use with tables to add detail and formatting to improve the readability of the data in the table. These options are found in the table style options up here. You can quickly add a total row, and now you can see the overall sales in cell E9, and you have the option to add totals in cells B9 through D9. You can turn on and off special formatting for alternating column and row colors. You can also turn filtering off and on. Filtering lets you change the rows you see in the table. There are a few ways to add rows and columns to a table, but the quickest way to do this is to drag the icon in the bottom right-hand corner down here. If I drag down, more rows will be added to the table, and when I drag to the right, more columns will be added. If you no longer want your data to be in a table, you can convert it back to a normal range of cells. To do this, select a cell within the table, select the Table Design tab if it's not already selected, then just click the Convert to Range icon and select Yes. The formatting applied to the table will remain in place, but you'll notice the Table Design tab in the command ribbon is no longer there, so you know your data is no longer in a table. Now, there's a lot more you can do with tables, but let's move on and look at creating charts in Excel to visualize your data and show trends. Charts help make your data easier to understand by visualizing it. They can also help you spot trends or see critical details that you might not be able to see by just looking at the data. Some widely used chart types include line charts, bar charts, column charts, and pie charts, although I suggest you try to avoid pie charts because it's usually difficult to distinguish the differences in the slices of a pie chart. If you wanted to create a chart to visualize the sales for these 3 products over the past 4 weeks, first, you'd select the cells to include in the chart, which are cells A4 through D8. Then click on the Insert tab on the command ribbon to access Excel's charting commands. The easiest way to find an appropriate chart for your data is to use the Recommended Charts icon. Excel shows you some chart options. You can click on a chart type here on the left to see a larger preview of it on the right. When you've selected the option you want to use, click OK to add the chart. I'll just move it up a little bit by dragging it with my mouse. The chart shows a range of incrementally increasing monetary values on the left side, a section across the bottom for each week in the data, a bar for each product's sales figure, and the bar height represents the monetary value of that product for that week. With the chart selected, you can use the Chart Elements icon to change which chart elements to include in the chart. You can also change the chart's style and color theme with the Chart Styles icon. You can change the data displayed in the chart with the Chart Filters icon. And you can make a change to any element within the chart by double-clicking it. Double-clicking a chart element will open up its Format Chart Element pane over here on the right. This pane has several sections of options for making changes to your chart element. You can change the chart's type with the Change Chart Type icon on the Chart Design tab. Select the chart category you want to use and then select the specific chart type and click OK. And now you can see our chart has been changed to a line chart. You can see from the chart that the product with the highest sales was product 1 during week 3. This information is not easy to see by just looking at the data, and this shows one of the advantages of using charts. There are many ways that you can change your chart by using the options on the Chart Design and Format tabs of the command ribbon. These tabs are available whenever a chart is selected. But let's move on to the final topic of this video and see how pivot tables can help summarize data in an Excel worksheet. You saw how charts did an excellent job of visualizing data, showing trends, and pointing out key facts in your data. But what if you had a more significant amount of data and you wanted to summarize it? This is where pivot tables come in. If you have data with repeating values in a column, you can create a pivot table that summarizes the data by that repeating value. I've updated the sales data we've been using to include a source value for each row. There are 3 possible sources: direct mail, in-store, and website. You can create a pivot table to summarize the data by its source, its week, or both. Let's create a pivot table to show the data by its source. To do this, first select any cell within the data to be used for the pivot table. So I'll select cell D10. Then select the Insert tab to locate the pivot table command. Then click the pivot table icon. The Create Pivot Table dialog box opens. The data to create your pivot table has already been added to the table range text box, so all you need to do is specify where to put the pivot table. To add the pivot table next to the data, select the existing Worksheet Radio button and place your cursor in the Location text box. Then select the cell where you want the top left-hand corner of the pivot table to be added. I'll choose cell H4. To add the pivot table, just click OK. And now you can see there's a pivot table placeholder on our worksheet. You'll also notice that the pivot table field pane opened on the right side of our document. You need to populate the pivot table placeholder with the data to be summarized. So to summarize the sales data by source, click the checkbox to the left of the source field in the pivot table fields pane. The pivot table now includes a row for each unique source value. Next, to see the sales total for all 3 products for each source, click the checkbox next to the total field. Now you can see the total sales for all products for each source. When you click a checkbox next to a field in the pivot table fields pane that contains text values, Excel assumes you want to use that field as rows in your pivot table. When you click the checkbox next to a field that contains numerical values, Excel assumes you want to use that field as a value to be summarized. To make the totals in the pivot table easier to read, you can format them by right-clicking one of the cells in the pivot table, then choosing Value Field Settings from the shortcut menu, clicking the Number Format button, and selecting the format you want. I'll set our total field to currency with 0 decimal places, and then I'll click OK twice to apply the formatting. If you want to see the total sales by week instead of source, you could uncheck the source field. Unchecking the field removed it from the pivot table, and now you just see the overall total. Now I'll click the week field checkbox, and now you see the data summarized by week. If you select the source field again, you'll see that the data is summarized by the week, and then within each week by the source. Now you can do a lot more with pivot tables, but now you know the basics, and you can experiment with the pivot table fields pane and options available in the pivot table Analyze and Design tabs to get the results you want to see when summarizing your data. Congratulations, you finished the course. You now know your way around the Excel application, you know how to write formulas, use cell references, you know how to use some of Excel's built-in functions, you can convert data into tables, create charts and pivot tables. You've learned a lot. Now, if you want to learn more about all these topics or other topics of Excel, check out my Microsoft Excel Quick Start course on the Udemy Course Marketplace by clicking on the link or the button below this video. I hope you enjoyed the course and got a lot out of it. If you did, please share it, like it, and subscribe to my YouTube channel to get access to more videos about Excel and other productivity software. Thanks so much for watching, and have fun using Excel.